Hi, it's Katrina! From corkscrew-shaped structures taller than humans to missing warplanes, here are 9 mysterious archaeological finds. Number 9. Rök Stone. For over a century since its discovery, researchers have remained puzzled over Sweden's Rök Stone, an 8-foot-tall Viking monolith featuring the world's longest known runic inscription. It was raised by a father who dedicated it to his son who had died. It is a 700-character essay written by Varinn, the grieving father who feared that winter was coming, a long period of catastrophic cold. Or perhaps in the metaphorical Game of Thrones winter is coming way. The 5-ton granite slab dates back to 800 AD, and according to Smithsonian Magazine, the etchings have puzzled researchers for more than a century. Earlier this year, a research team led by Swedish scholar Per Holmberg proposed that the eulogy may hint at a broader message, and that its author feared an impending period of extreme cold for real. Varinn created the inscription roughly 300 years after a series of volcanic eruptions inflicted a cold spell lasting from 536 to 550, which destroyed crops and caused mass starvation, ultimately killing up to half the Scandinavian peninsula's population. The year 536 is actually considered the worst year in history to be alive. But that's a story for another video. The runestone mentions Theodoric the Great, a 6th century ruler who was in power during the cold spell. It also contains the words 9 generations, which traces back to the same time. These clues suggest that Varinn's fear of extreme cold stemmed from knowledge of the event that was passed down over decades. Strange events in his recent years, including a near-total solar eclipse and an especially cool summer, may have deepened the man's concerns, especially since these were considered signs of Ragnarok, the beginning of civilization's end. The runestone remains shrouded in mystery, and there's a lot of room for interpretation. However, Varinn's fears from so long ago are still valid today. As he says, when severe enough, global change can truly be a conflict between light and darkness, warmth and cold, life and death. Number 8. Arkaim. While performing routine digging in the steppe of Russia's southern Ural in 1987, a team of archaeologists unearthed the circular ruins of a 3,600-year-old fortified settlement called Arkaim. This mysterious site was built sometime between the 17th and 16th centuries B.C., and it's actually one of several similar structures throughout a large territory spanning the southern Trans-Urals and northern Kazakhstan known as the Country of Towns. Within the structure at Arkaim, which measures roughly 492 feet in diameter, were 2 defensive ramparts and 60 or so dugout dwellings with hearths, cellars, walls, and furnaces, which open to an inner courtyard. These features point toward organized planning, powerful leadership, and a highly developed social structure among its builders. But who built it? Arkaim and the other buildings within the Country of Towns are often attributed to the earliest Indo-Iranian settlers of the region, who are connected with the Sintashta culture of the Eurasian steppe. There were horse burials found nearby, which was a common practice as the Indo-European people had a strong connection to their horse and believed their relationship would continue into the afterlife. In 2013, a skeleton with an elongated skull was discovered. This was common practice among some groups in South Ural, supporting the theory that it was the Sarmati tribe. But researchers haven't fully untangled the mysteries of Arkaim, and there are many secrets still waiting to be found. Number 7. Missing warplanes. In 2003, search teams from the U.S. military discovered dozens of buried Iraqi Air Force fighter jets in the Al-Taqadum airfield west of Baghdad, when searchers saw the tops of 2 tail fins belonging to a Cold War-era MiG-25 Interceptor protruding from the sand. The aircrafts were buried fully intact, but with no measures taken to protect them from the elements, begs the question of whether they would ever fly again. Other planes were found hidden under trees or draped with camouflage sheets. To better protect their hidden planes, the Iraqi military scattered the airfield with aircraft that were destroyed in previous wars, making it difficult for bombers to select targets. Before the Iraq War, intelligence analysts estimated that the Iraqi military had 300 combat aircraft left over from the 1991 Kuwait War, but the country's air force was conspicuously absent when the Iraq War took hold in 2003. leading U.S. military officials to believe that the fighter jets were not being used because they were inadequate against American and British air power. The buried planes were not considered WMD, which is what the search team was looking for when they made the discovery, but they are weapons Iraq tried to hide, said Congressman Porter Goss. While finding modern machinery in the ground may not seem like an archaeological mystery, it's possible that there are more buried planes that remain undiscovered for now. And if there's planes, who knows what else is down there. And now for some history about horses. But first, want to give a big thank you to Lauren Kelly and Nuts and Bolts Man, cause I can, for supporting this channel. Thanks guys! Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell if you haven't already. Number 6. Horse domestication. The history of horse domestication is shrouded in mystery, with researchers occasionally making discoveries that bring them one step closer to understanding how humans came to develop such a close relationship to these animals. Although sometimes discoveries seem to just confuse us more. In 2012, a genetic study by Cambridge University researchers indicated that horses were first domesticated on the grasslands of Ukraine, southwest Russia, and west Kazakhstan around 6,000 years ago. From there, they spread across Europe and Asia while continuing to breed with wild mares along the way. Before these findings surfaced, there were two primary conflicting theories about horse domestication. One, based on traces of horse's milk found on ancient pottery and other artifacts, held that horses were tamed in the same region that the newer study identified, and around the same time. But mitochondrial DNA evidence pointed toward domestication happening in many places throughout Europe and Asia. The 2012 study brought these competing theories together by feeding nuclear DNA from modern horses into computer models programmed to explore different domestication scenarios. But William Taylor, an archaeologist from the University of Colorado at Boulder, does not consider the mystery solved. Writing for Sapiens.org, he explained that archaeologists don't necessarily agree on which artifacts constitute signs of horse domestication and how remains of wild horses have been mistaken as tamed ones. Taylor, who researches the matter firsthand, stresses that getting to the bottom of it will involve reanalyzing old artifacts with modern technology and relying on DNA analysis for drawing any solid conclusions. Number 5. Berkeley Mystery Wall. Across California's East Bay Hills and throughout the Bay Area in general, there are a series of rock walls and other formations whose histories are only partially solved. Some acted as property boundaries for Spanish ranchers, while others were built by Chinese workers clearing land for farms and ranches. But many of these structures lack a clear explanation. These mystery walls, which stand at up to 5 feet tall, are mostly in places that are difficult to access, and none of them would have been practical as defensive structures or for any other fathomable purpose. Spanish settlers reported seeing the formations upon their arrival, and when they asked the local Native Americans about the walls, they allegedly did not have an answer. By all appearances, the structures are incredibly old, but their true age is unknown. Perhaps the most famous among them is the Berkeley Mystery Wall in Tilden Regional Park. It looks like a simple property marker or ranching wall at first glance, but upon closer examination, its crude structure is uncharacteristic of the known building methods that were used for such structures, and it also doesn't resemble the architectural styles of local cultures in general, meaning all we can do is speculate at best about who built it and why. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 4. Devil's Corkscrews. During the mid-19th century in Sioux County, Nebraska, ranchers began discovering spiral structures about as thick as a human arm, made from a hard, rock-like substance standing vertically in the ground. They contained an upward chamber at the bottom end, which often contained animal bones. Some of these bizarre formations, which were nicknamed Devil's Corkscrews, were taller than a grown man. Geologist E.H. Barber examined a 9-foot-long specimen in 1891 and discovered that it was a fossil made of a fibrous white material and filled with sand. He theorized that this and the dozens of other corkscrews he found, which he called monoliths, were the roots of an ancient freshwater sponge, which lived in a lake that once existed in the area. But the structures were more consistent with a semi-arid grassland habitat, leading Barber to conclude that they were the roots of ancient land plants, although this still doesn't explain why they contained chambers full of animal bones. American paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope and Australian paleontologist Theodore Fuchs challenged Barber's theory in 1893 by suggesting that the corkscrews were rodent burrows that filled with sediment, trapping the animals inside. Strange scratch marks seem to support this idea, and in 1905 the rodent remains found in the corkscrews were identified as belonging to the extinct Paleocastor genus, which roamed the region 22 million years ago. Finally, in 1977, fossil expert Larry Martin and Deb Bennet, his student at the University of Kansas, discovered that the Paleocastor's incisor teeth matched perfectly with the grooves on the devil's corkscrews. Ta-da! Mystery solved! Finally. Number 3. The Giant's Wheel. Rujum el-Hiri, which is Arabic for Mound of the Wildcat, is a megalithic stone circle and burial mound in Golan Heights, currently occupied by Israel. Local surveyor Yitzhaki Gal discovered the formation, which also goes by the Hebrew name Galgal Harefaim, or the Giant's Wheel, in 1968. It sits on a remote volcanic plateau in the company of thousands of Middle Bronze Age tombs called dolmens. The structure itself is thought to be between 5,000 and 6,000 years old, and it was used for thousands of years, with the burial mound being implemented around 1,300 BC. Archaeological research is ongoing, but so far, nobody seems to agree on an explanation for the structure's chosen location or its unique construction, which consists of 5 concentric black basalt stone rings with an outer diameter of nearly 500 feet surrounding a central 23-foot-high mound. At ground level, it's hardly impressive, but the aerial view is stunning. However, the Giant's Wheel was built long before aircraft existed, leading some to wonder why an ancient civilization would craft something that only looks nice from above. Like the Nazca lines, researchers also found an elaborate tomb and Bronze Age jewelry within the mound. The outer circle contains 2 entrances, one facing northeast, which leads to a tunnel aligned with the entrance, suggesting possible astronomical significance, and the other facing southeast. The stone wheels are irregularly divided, as if to form differently sized viewing areas for spectators gathered around the mound, or for corralling animals for a special event. 2 things experts seem to agree on is that the monument is the result of careful planning and abundant manpower, and that an important chieftain or other leader was buried there. The rest is largely a mystery. We have bits of information, but not the whole picture, megalithic tomb expert Yuri Berger told Reuters. Scientists come and are amazed by the site and think up their own theories. Number 2. Gursu Bridge. Archaeologists started excavating the ancient Sumerian city of Gurzu, located in modern-day southern Iraq, in 1877. In 1929, they discovered an ambiguous, large stone structure that resembled a pair of parentheses, measuring 130 feet long and 33 feet wide with 11-foot-high walls. Researchers theorized that the enigmatic construction, as they called it, was a temple, dam, or water regulator, and didn't think much beyond that, instead writing the seemingly inconsequential structure off as unimportant. It wasn't until 2018 that they re-examined the evidence and realized that it's a bridge that once sat over an ancient waterway, which no longer exists. Gurzu is one of the world's earliest known cities, making the 4,000-year-old structure the world's oldest known surviving bridge. Archaeologist Sebastien Rey, who identified traces of an ancient canal by studying satellite imagery of the site, deducted that the bridge served as a bottleneck for the canal. For nearly a century, it has sat out in the open, with no measures taken to preserve it. As a result, it's badly weathered and damaged. The British Museum announced its plans to preserve the bridge in partnership with the Iraq State Board of Antiquities and Heritage as part of the Iraqi Emergency Heritage Management Training Scheme, a British-funded program which seeks to protect ancient sites by training archaeologists from throughout the country in practical fieldwork and cultural heritage management. Number 1. King Tut's Gemstone. British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered King Tut's untouched tomb in 1922. As you know, this discovery is one of the most incredible archaeological discoveries ever, and King Tut has become a symbol of Egypt. Its burial chambers were chock full of treasures like ivory statues, gold objects, and precious jewelry. One treasure chest contained a pectoral or breastplate covered in silver and gold accents and various gemstones, including a peculiar yellow-green stone in the shape of a winged scarab, representing the god Ra. Carter initially identified the substance as chalcedony, a common mineral quartz variety. A decade later, British geographer Patrick Clayton found similar pieces of material in the Great Sand Sea, a remote and desolate portion of the Libyan desert located along the Egypt-Libya border. He theorized that they were quartz mineral deposits from a dried-up lake. Finally, in 1998, an Italian mineralogist, Vincenzo De Michele, accurately identified the yellow-green substance as Libyan desert silica glass, one of the rarest substances on Earth. Like quartz, it's almost entirely made up of pure silicon dioxide, but it has a different crystal structure and contains unusual traces of elements such as iron, nickel, chromium, cobalt, and iridium. The material is only found in the Great Sand Sea, which confused experts since glass typically forms from rapidly cooling molten rock, and there are no volcanic craters in the region. In a study published last year, researchers analyzed grains of what they thought were zircon from the desert glass, only to realize they were looking at radite, a very rare mineral that is chemically similar to zircon, but only forms under high pressure. The only logical conclusion, according to the researchers, is that Libyan desert glass formed as a result of a meteorite impact sometime between 26 and 28 million years ago. It's the only phenomenon that would have generated the necessary conditions for creating radite, lending credibility to the theory, but information about an associated impact crater remains scarce. Pretty cool, huh? Thanks for watching! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and if there's a topic you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments below. See you next time! Bye!